This training video is a project of the Chicago District's FY12 Operations Plan Objective Number 4, which is to increase awareness of technical resources. This particular video will provide an overview of USACE's SharePoint environment by introducing the viewer to the concept of SharePoint farms, what they mean, what they look like, and where they can be found. A good place to start learning about SharePoint and what it provides to USACE employees is on ACIT's web support pages, which can be found here at the following address, then by going to Support and Services and clicking on Web Support. Here at the Web Support page, let's review a few key terms before we move forward in our discussion of SharePoint. The term intranet is used to describe a site whose audience is intended only for USACE personnel. The term extranet is used for sites whose audience is USACE personnel and selected external partners, such as IDNR or USGS. Lastly, the term internet is for sites on the World Wide Web, when it has www in front of the address, and is used when the audience is for anyone with an internet connection. As we move forward with this discussion about SharePoint, this video is going to be focusing only on the intranet sites, or those sites whose audience is solely for USACE personnel. You can read an in-depth description of SharePoint by clicking on the link in the upper left corner called USACE Enterprise SharePoint, or ESP for short. For this video, we're going to focus on a discussion of the various SharePoint farms that exist, and we'll start by clicking on the next link in the upper left corner called SharePoint Farms. This page provides an overview of SharePoint farms. As mentioned earlier, we're going to focus solely on the internal farms that are for USACE personnel only. Information on external farms can be found further down the page. When we talk about a SharePoint farm, the term farm means a collection of sites who have a common theme and appearance. ACIT has currently created 7 farms, with each having a different theme and appearance, and 6 of them are described here on this page. This video will give you a brief look at what each one of these farms look like and what information they provide. Let's begin with the first one listed, called ACIT Online. The ACIT Online SharePoint farm should look familiar because it is the page where we begin this video. Here, ACIT intends to use this site to provide IT service information to their USACE customers. Some examples of the helpful information that can be found here is a system status bar at the top that will indicate outages when applicable. Another example is a self-service tab, where you can find a link to the Enterprise Service Desk. From this link you can find information such as the service desk telephone number or the address for the web console. This also includes reminding you of the generic password of ESD that is needed for access. The ACIT homepage also has a link on the left called Enterprise SharePoint Links, with links to the various farms we will be discussing, as well as a few additional farms not shown on their web support page. CPAC, or Civilian Personnel Advisory Center, is technically a site that is part of the intranet farm, but is included here as its own link. The CPAC SharePoint site shown here is a place to find much of the useful human resources information that is available to USACE employees. Next, we'll look at apps, short for Enterprise SharePoint Customized Applications. There are 2 application sites available as of the creation of this video. One is OrderTrack, as shown here. This site can be accessed from the ACIT homepage under the link for Order Here. The other hosts the SharePoint training environment. We'll review this one in more detail near the end of the video. Back at the ACIT SharePoint farm site, we'll now review the farm called COPS, which is short for Communities of Practice. The definition and description of COPS can be found on the right side of the home page, and the first paragraph reads, "A group of people who regularly interacts to collectively learn, solve problems, build skills and competencies, and develop best practices around a shared concern, goal, mission, set of problems, or work practice." The COPS sites are currently undergoing a migration to the SharePoint format, so the listing of COPS is split among those listed under the banner COPS on this site, other sites, and links to COPS on KME, or Knowledge Management Environment. An example of a COP that has been fully migrated is the Business Management Division Committee. This community of practice site is an example of what most COP sites will look like after their migration. The fourth farm on the list is KME, which is short for Knowledge Management Environment. The ACIT webpage states that KME will be moving to the appropriate new categories identified above. But until that time occurs, we'll show you what can be found here. The links are organized under 4 main categories seen in the white boxes and are Communities of Practice, Headquarters and Separate Offices, Regional Business Center, Division Centers, and Enterprise Initiatives. You can review the first 3 on your own, and we'll focus on highlighting a few of those contained under Enterprise Initiatives. The first is the Enterprise Lessons Learned database. This is where lessons learned can either be submitted or where previously submitted lessons learned can be reviewed. The same holds true for the next 2 links, which provide access to the Value Engineering and After Action Review. Finally, you'll find a link to the Quality Management System, or QMS, which allows users to browse and search for business processes that are either applicable across the core, division, or district. The 5th SharePoint farm is the Intranet farm. The SharePoint version of Intranet pages is being developed at all levels, from the headquarters site, as shown here, through the divisions and down to each district. The intranet is intended to be used by districts to provide information for their employees. For example, the Buffalo's district intranet provides such information as district videos, district news, and access to the district's local publication. It also provides links to various offices and sections within the district. The biggest advantage of the new SharePoint format will be the menus in the upper right corner. These will be the same whether at the headquarters, division, or district level. These links will be managed on the headquarters level, and any updates will appear simultaneously across all USACE intranet pages. You'll find links to all of the SharePoint farms discussed in this video under these menus. The link for the ACIT farm is under the Support Services, called ACIT Online, while the links to all other farms can be found under SharePoint internal sites, as shown here. Currently under development is a SharePoint version for the Chicago district that will replace the existing intranet website and can be accessed through the link as shown here. The 6th SharePoint farm is called Team and is intended as an area for collaboration at the section level, as opposed to Communities of Practice, which are intended as a collaboration site across the entire USACE community. The various sites shown here may include such items as calendars, shared documents, lists, announcements, and other collaboration tools. Looking at the Chicago District's Team site, one will find menu items for public affairs, PDTs, groups, and tools. The Public Affairs menu has a site for Water Cooler, which provides announcements and links to various websites managed by Public Affairs on the right side.
The PDT's Groups menu has a link to the Fish Barrier Efficacy Study site. This site has been set up to enable organizations to provide administrative documents to the LRC Office of Counsel. Lastly, the menu for tools includes links to sites such as the USACE Intranet, the Chicago District Intranet, SharePoint Skills Instruction, and SharePoint Tips and Tricks. A seventh SharePoint farm is called Publications, and although it is not discussed on this page, it can be accessed from the ACIT SharePoint farm homepage using the Enterprise SharePoint Links menu on the left and USACE Publications link. As stated at the top of the page, this site is intended to provide one location for USACE personnel to find administrative publications from each and every USACE organization. For example, you can find a link to the Internet Public Publications, as well as to the Engineer Research and Development Center, which will take you to a page on their intranet SharePoint farm site. Before we conclude this video, we'll start where we began, at the ACIT SharePoint farm homepage, then back to the ACIT web support page. At the bottom, you'll find links to SharePoint training under the heading Related Links. The first link, entitled SharePoint Skills Instruction, will take you to a site on the SharePoint Apps farm, which we discussed earlier. Here you can enroll in webinars, practice what you've learned in the demo and practice lab, and review or share tips and tricks. The slides for the webinars are available for review at the bottom of the page. And the following is an extract from SP 101 Basic, which outlines the topics that are discussed in the webinar, such as basic skills and useful sites and examples. Signing up for this webinar would be an excellent next step in your introduction to SharePoint. This concludes the video on USACE's SharePoint environment and SharePoint farms. The link to the ACIT web support page is shown here for your reference. Thank you for watching.